fundamentals in real estate. Here, you will learn the basic laws in real estate that will help you in dealing with your buyers in the practice of your profession. This is Manuel, your real estate broker based in Cebu. I'm here at one of the fine beaches of Ponta Inganyo, Mactan. As a broker, I travel places. And I want to bring you along with me today, virtually, as we discuss the fundamentals of real estate. So, without further ado, let's learn the fundamentals in real estate. Fundamentals means basic, the foundation in which real estate laws are based. Who can own real estate? Only Filipino citizens. But there are exceptions. Number one exception is former Filipino. Even those who have become foreign citizens and no longer a Filipino, but as long as they are natural born citizens of the Philippines, can still own land here in the Philippines, but with limitations. What are the limitations? Residential, which is 1,000 square meter, urban, that means city, and 1 hectare rural. If for business, that's 5,000 urban and 3 hectares rural. Second exception is corporations, 60% Filipino and 40% foreigners. There are foreigners who put up a corporation here in order to own land, but they should ensure that 60% share is owned by Filipino. Third exception is interest of 40% in a condominium project. What does this mean? This means that only 40% of the inventory for sale of a given condo project can be sold to foreigners. 60% should be for Filipinos. And the fourth exception is acquisition through hereditary succession. If, for example, the spouse of a foreigner is a Filipino here in the Philippines, if the Filipino spouse died, the foreigner can already own the property by hereditary succession. And number 5 is acquisition before the 1935 Constitution. This law was promulgated in 1935 Constitution. Therefore, acquisition before that date is exempted. In other words, those pure foreigners who own land before 1935 can still own land on the property that they bought before. Basic ownership law. The basic ownership law is absolute community property or conjugal. This means that the property should be owned by both spouses if both are Filipino citizens. That is why, as a real estate practitioner, either salesperson or broker, you should ensure that the contract of sale, the deed of absolute sale, as well as the title, should start with the word spouses, and then their full name, including middle name. But if one of the spouses is a foreigner, what should be written? it should be Filipino name married to, which is the name of the foreigner. Even if both are Filipinos, the phrase Filipino name married to another Filipino can still be used if the client prefers to be that way. This would mean that the name written is the legal owner and that the other spouse, being married, can just contest his equal ownership later on if there is any dispute. A married individual cannot buy any property without writing the name of his or her spouse in the contract or any document of ownership. We actually had clients before who got separated from their spouses, but sad to say, they cannot buy real estate properties on their name alone. There are those who declare that they are single, but do not allow that to happen. Advise them that it's very risky. That's falsification of documents. That can be allowed only when there is annulment of marriage or legal separation. Modes of acquiring title. What are the modes? Modes means ways of legally owning real estate properties here in the Philippines. Number one, private grant. It could be sale or donation. This is for privately owned properties. The sale requires deed of sale as a document of conveyance. In the case of donation, deed of donation is required, but the same rate of tax will be applied for both sale and donation. Number two, public grant. That means government awards. This is for government-owned properties. The government, upon the request or negotiation of its citizen, may allow granting of awards through what we call sales patent or free patent, provided that the land is alienable and disposable. The third mode of acquiring title is involuntary grant. Foreclosure sale, execution sale, or tax sale. What is involuntary grant? This means that the land owned by an individual is legally forfeited for payment of the owner's debt from banks or any lender. If you don't pay your tax for long periods of time, your property can be taken by the government for tax sale, so you can pay your tax. And number four is inheritance, hereditary succession. If the property is legally owned through title by your parents or your forefathers, you can own it through hereditary succession. You just present a death of certificate, title, and deed of extrajudicial settlement. Extrajudicial settlement is a formal agreed settlement of all heirs inheriting the property. And the last is reclamation, which is filling of submerged land, subject to existing laws and government regulations. Limitations on rights of ownership. Number one, those imposed in general by the state, such as eminent domain. What is eminent domain? This is the power of the government to take private property to convert it into public use with just compensation to the property owners. Of course, it's the government who will determine the price of the property. And it could be very low. You cannot complain. So, as a real estate practitioner, how would you convince those who own land that are beside a major road or highway? You have to educate them about eminent domain. You can say to them, sir, it's better to sell it now so you can set a reasonable price for your land. If there will be road widening soon, the government will take your land by eminent domain and the price will be very low. Now, if you go to court, you will spend a lot of money and you still lose. So if you can convince them, that will be your listing for sale. Another limitation on the rights of ownership is those imposed by law, such as court decisions. If your land is subject to dispute with other claimants, court decisions will limit your right of ownership. And the third limitation is those imposed by the owner himself, such as collateral or loans. This means borrowed money using the property as collateral. Of course, your ownership is limited by the amount of money you borrow. Who can own hidden treasure? Hidden treasure belongs to the owner of the land. That's the law. If you happen to dig hidden treasures in your land, by law, you are the legal owners of such treasures. Who knows, you can find hidden treasures of Yamashita in your land. The treasures buried by the Japanese during the Second World War. That's all yours. Question is, how far down and how far up is your right of your property? The answer is from the surface downwards to the center of the earth and extends upwards indefinitely to the skies. This means that your ownership of your land is not only on its surface, but all the way down to the center of the earth and all the way upwards indefinitely to the skies. But of course, this is subject to government regulations and also subject to your capacity to develop your land. But just beware of the fact that you own a huge parcel of property when you buy land. And yet, you only pay a small amount compared to its potential value. And what are the types of real estate? Number one, residential, which is for dwelling purposes. Commercial, for business purposes. And industrial, for example, building factories to manufacture products. And number four, mixed use, means a combination of residential, commercial, or industrial. What are the 5 professions in real estate? Number one, real estate salesperson. You can start as a real estate salesperson. No need to take any exam, as long as you're at least second year college, and you need to be under a licensed broker. You're invited to see my other video featuring how to become a licensed real estate agent in the Philippines. The other profession is real estate broker. If you dream to become a real estate broker, you need to take up 4-year course in BSREP. In other words, Bachelor of Science in Real Estate Management. And you should pass the board exam. The third one is real estate appraiser. Real estate appraiser is one who determines the values of real estate properties. You also need to take BSREP and pass the board exam for appraisers. And real estate assessor. Assessor is a real estate appraiser hired by the government to assess values of properties for tax purposes. And number 5 is real estate consultant. Real estate consultant is the highest position in real estate. He is usually an independent advisor of real estate developers and even the government for any real estate developmental projects to guide them in important decision making. How can you protect your buyers against developers who fail to deliver? We have right to refund under PD 957. Right to refund applies when the developer fails to complete the development within the required period. Refund is 100% of total payments. Question is, how would you handle prospect buyers who would raise doubt that the pre-selling property you are selling may not be completed by the developer? You can say to them that they are protected by right of refund under PD 957. But supposing your buyers has been paying for 4 years already and it's delayed, your buyer wanted to refund his money. How would you handle it? You have to convince him that the prices have increased so much for 4 years now, and he is protected for the low price he purchased. Refund will make him lose money. So you have to convince him to continue. But you should also assure him that the development will be completed only that it's delayed for its good reasons. This is how you would also protect your commission. Okay? How can you protect your buyers against onerous developers? We have Maceda law, RA 6552. Right to refund when the buyer has paid at least 2 years. And the refund is 50% of total payments. Additional 5% per year after the 5th year. In the past, if buyers by installment fail to pay their installment on time and they have been delinquent on their accounts, contracts were canceled, properties were taken back, and payments made were not refunded even if the buyer has paid millions of pesos already. This is what we call in legal parlance, it's onerous. It means brutal. In other words, cruel. What else? Inhuman. What else? Oppressive. Now, in honor of our former Senator Maceda, who initiated this law, the government promulgated a law called Maceda Law that When the buyer has paid for at least 2 years, he has the right of refund at least 50% of total payments, plus additional 5% per year after the 5th year. So, for example, he has paid already 1 million for 2 years. 500,000 should be refunded if he cannot pay anymore. As a real estate salesperson, how would you take advantage of this Maceda law rather than just waiting for buyer's refund? Of course, you can convince the buyer to sell the property to a new buyer and even get more money than the refund. Most developers actually are not willing or do not have the budget to refund 50% in cash. So you will use the stand-off time to sell the property and earn commission from the seller. Maceda law applicability is for the sale or financing of real estate or installment payment covered by contract to sell and not sale with mortgage. This means those that are bought through bank financing, pag-ibig financing, are not covered by Maceda law. Only developers, wherein the title is not yet transferred in the name of the buyer. Then there is a provision here provided that this can only be availed of once every 5 years. So buyers cannot avail this all the time, only once every 5 years. Mortgage of land for development. No mortgage of any land by the project owner or developer without permit to mortgage from DHSUD, which is Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development. Permit to mortgage may be granted upon submission of proof that the loan proceeds will be used for development. This is also one very important protection for your buyers. The property, either lot only, house and lot, or condo, cannot be mortgaged. In other words, cannot be used as collateral for loan with any banking institution unless with permission from DHSUD. You can cite this law to assure your buyers that they are protected. Our laws ensure that if ever the permit to mortgage is granted, the loan proceeds will be used for development. So there, I hope you have learned something from this episode entitled Fundamentals in Real Estate. I hope you can apply what you have learned and be able to be highly competent in dealing with your buyers. And of course, such competence will lead you to more sales and success in your profession. And don't forget to thank the Lord for your great success in your career. For whatever you do here on earth are for His glory. God bless you and see you in my next video. Bye!